If I was a cop, I'd love me. Anonymous text, easy arrest, boom, job done.
I know, more Marvel Spider-Man PS4 gameplay playing in the background, but it is my only Marvel video game I have right now. I mean, who knows if Marvel's Avengers for next year by Square Enix is going to be good enough for me to pick up, because the E3 reveal trailer was a bit underwhelming in my opinion from last summer. But who knows, maybe it'll be a good video game and not completely underwhelming. We'll just have to see about that come next year. So with that being said, guys, on to the topic of this video. So it's been 1 year, okay? 1 year since Stan Lee, the famous Marvel comic book writer, creator of Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and maybe the X-Men, and so on. It's been a year since he passed away, surprisingly last year. I believe at the top of my head he was 95 years old before, but by the time he died on November 12, 2018, and now it's November 12, 2019. And man, I just keep on thinking ever since then, what could have been if Stan Lee didn't die right away? Right away. If he didn't die on November 12, 2018, what would he be doing right now? What would his cameo appearances in a Spider-Man Far From Home, what would it have been, you know? Because after Stan Lee's death, he only had like a handful of pre-recorded cameo appearances, because he was in his 90s, so I imagine it would have been hard for him to be traveling around the country to film his cameo appearances, so they had to pre-record them. And so after his death last year, he had one more he had two more MCU appearances, Captain Marvel first, and then Avengers Endgame, which, looking back to Avengers Endgame, I completely missed Stan Lee's cameo appearance, even though I was there at the theater to watch watch the scene where he made his appearance, because it just flew over my head like, oh wait, was that him? Was that Stan Lee in that car? And at first I was told something like, oh, that was supposed to be Stan Lee, but it wasn't. It was somebody else who just looks like him, or something like that. But then after watching Endgame and even seeing some YouTube clips, like, oh, that was Stan Lee, and I missed out on it when I watched Avengers Endgame in theaters. And then Spider-Man Far From Home. That was the first Marvel movie, even in the MCU, whether it's outside or in the MCU. Far From Home was his first Marvel movie without his cameo appearance. Although near the end of Far From Home, Marvel Studios and Sony did put a tribute to both him and Steve Ditko, his co-writer and co-creator of Spider-Man, because both of them died last year, in loving memory of Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. So, speaking of cameo appearances more, it's always been a treat to have seen Stan Lee in any Marvel movie and video game. Just wondering how, I may have even said this in my video I made about this news last year. It was always a treat to watch a Marvel movie and just be on the lookout for any Stan Lee cameo appearances. Like, what is he going to do? Who's he going to be? Is he going to be playing as himself or as another character? And earlier on, I believe he started out with silent cameos in Marvel movies, and then there were other brief cameo appearances where he did say like a line or two. Like, I believe, thinking from the top of my head, Thor: The Dark World, I believe. He was one of the elderly people, and he said a line to the scientist like, "Can I have my shoe back?" And others, like, I believe he was a mailman in the Fantastic Four movie. Again, this was before the MCU, that 2005-ish Fantastic Four movie where Chris Evans was still the Human Torch, and he was not yet known as Captain America or Steve Rogers. Just cameo appearances like that. He's also had at least one cameo appearance, from what I've heard, of Sony's Venom from last year, as well as watching a couple of clips okay, of Teen Titans Go to the Movies, even like an animated DC movie. I saw some clips of that movie, and he had like a couple of scenes where he's just acting as himself. Oh yeah, doing some poses of like Spider-Man and Wolverine, I think. And he was told in that movie, "Oh, this is not a Marvel movie. This is DC. Oh, okay, gotta get out of here." And then one more cameo appearance where he just greets the Teen Titans. I don't care if this is a DC movie. I love cameos. Excelsior. Oh, Stan Lee, we're going to miss you a lot. We in fact, us Marvel fans still miss you 3000, even though like you died before that meme. And speaking of your death, some more. It's for one thing. You could probably call it like a blessing that Stan Lee was not alive over this summer to hear about Spider-Man being pulled out of the MCU. Oh, don't you make me come down there. Oh, what would Stan Lee have thought if he were still around, or when earlier this summer Sony and Disney initially were fighting over Spider-Man, and like for a little bit the rights went back to Sony, and then last September from my last video, Spider-Man returned to the MCU. Oh man, yep, Stan Lee. We just nobody was expecting his death back in 2018 last year, a year ago. I gotta stop saying back then. But anyways, yeah, nobody expected Stan Lee to be taken away from us last year, and still just have to keep on thinking what could have been if he were still alive right now. What other cameo appearances he could have made. What Spider-Man Far From Home's Stan Lee cameo appearance could have been. And looking back at my old video, okay, this is a final note so that this video doesn't keep on going too long. Looking back at the video I made a year ago of when Stan Lee passed away, when news of his death came out, I mistakenly said that his name was Stan Lieberman, but no, his real name is actually Stanley Lieber, and so that's where his professional name Stan Lee came from. So I was a little bit mistaken in my older video before this channel was called Marvel Element. So there's a little correction I wanted to add there. But anyways, I'm going to end this video right now. What do you guys think of looking back at Stan Lee's passing a year afterwards? Do you remember what you were doing or where you were last year when news of his death broke out? And so yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Do you remember when even DC made it was either last year or earlier this year, around New Year's, that DC made a tribute to Stan Lee, their distinguished competitor, because like Stan Lee has done some work. I cannot say his work out the top of my head, but at least once Stan Lee has worked with DC before. So he wasn't completely a Marvel guy, but he's been mostly a Marvel guy, but he has worked with DC on occasion in the past, so that's why I wanted to bring that part up. But anyways, now I'm ending this video. Feel free to like, favorite, comment, subscribe, and tell me in the comments down below of what you thought of Stan Lee and many of your memories that you might have had of seeing him in the movies, or maybe you've met him in real life somehow in a convention, in a fan convention of some sort. Not E3, but something like Comic-Con or something like that. Now, this is Marvel Element signing out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Rest in peace, Stan Lee. We miss you 3000. Excelsior!